Get your day started on a great high, right here on the Lady E Show.
How much of the information you see on social media do you take in completely without questioning? How often do you take your time to verify the sources that provides you with this information? Do you also take your time to look beyond what you see? Do you read the words? How do they come across to you? How much filtering are you able to really carry out on the spot or when information are thrown at you? And after reading any information, do you take time to verify? That's what we'll be doing, to navigate that terrain, to find out the impact of online media, social media on the information we take. And the biggest question, the Nigerian 2090 election, what role is the media in this digital age can play in seeing that the electorates are equipped to be more politically intelligent, culturally intelligent, and more informed in the decisions that they take? My first port of call is Bridge Radio 98.7 in Asaba. I'm going to be having a conversation with the head of station, Rex Okiche. Hey Rex.
How you doing?
A pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
You've got a beautiful place here, Bridge
Thank
Radio.
You. Thank you, we try.
So I can't wait to interview you on the role social media and current traditional medias have emerged and the significance role we all play.
All right, let's do this.
Okay. In this age of social media, online connectivity, and in a world where we're becoming more tech savvy, digitally involved in things that are connected globally, incidentally, many online users seem to feel that any information they get online ordinarily should have been vetted and is something that can be easily consumed. Therefore, like somebody had done the cooking and they've served the food now, my job is to do the eating. But many do not realize that in this age, there's a lot of differentiation in the kind of information they receive. For example, some don't know that there's a difference between misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, outright false stories, propaganda, even conspiracy theories. Now, what role do you think the media can play in re-educating audiences, listeners, viewers, in knowing that sometimes when you see certain information, you need to up your intelligence in terms of how you critique the info that is brought in front of you?
Okay, coming to the content, how good the content is. Well, we've seen a dearth in original content that are fact-checked, and so that's where the problem is. And because of the age of social media, a lot of people are, for themselves reporters, as if you may. They are reporters in themselves. So there's a lot of information going out there, and sifting through the proper information and the inaccurate ones is going to be a challenge. But for the traditional media, we have a job to do in making sure that we do our fact checks and make sure that all the information is or all the parties involved are represented and no one is being misquoted and things like that. So there's a whole lot that needs to be done. It's a challenge really, because we see a lot of half-baked journalists practicing, and so that's been a challenge. But it's the role of the traditional media to ensure that they have editors who can vet these things before they get out there, so that the listeners and the audiences are properly informed. Be that as it may, also the traditional media also has a job to do even on the social media space, because if they have websites that people can go to, they would rather go to their own websites as opposed to all these other blogs that are not typically media houses. So I think that's the role that the traditional media can play to ensure that there's a bit of balance, but you can't totally take away the fact that people will still post inaccurate stuff and people will still get misinformed.
How do you think your radio station is contributing to help in managing fake news in this media space?
That's well, here at Bridge Radio, we try our best to make sure that the information we put out is vetted and is checked, just so that people don't call you and with opposing sides to the story you just took. Because we live in a community where it's more like everyone knows everyone, and if you don't do your fact checks very well, people can come back and dispute the story you just put out. So we do our best to make sure that even the stories that are national, we do try to see other points of views and other information regarding that particular topic before we put it out. But be that as it may, it is a big challenge because we've seen that the radio is mass media. So a lot of the people who have access to the information on radio may not have the proper education to be able to discern what is misinformation, malinformation, and outright false or fake news. So it is our duty to make sure that our news is appropriate and it's vetted and it's true. And also occasionally, when it comes to this electioneering period, there will be a lot of fake news about people, opponents. We've seen politicians do all kinds of bad communication just to sway people's votes or opinions about other people. So it's our duty to make sure that we stay in the middle and stay balanced, and also educate people through PSAs and things like that, that how they can desist from that. But apart from that, I think this age of social media is contributing a lot, because there's so much flying around, so much threads of statements by people who don't even disclose their names. You just see a message thread clarifying an issue that has to do with maybe a person or a company or whatnot, and people just take it at face value and just believe it. So it's really a problem.
Some might argue that Nigerian media is not doing enough in terms of the repertoire, especially when it comes to getting grassroots-oriented data, information, stories. Because part of the gap, many complain, is that there's not enough being done by the media to compensate for this lack of information. You talked about earlier on of people hearing about an aspirant, for example, and then information is dished out from whatever source, from press releases or from whatever propaganda machine they may want to use. And this is what comes to them. So a lot of audiences complain that the challenge they have with traditional online media, which is their first source of primary information, is that because they don't do the detailed work of investigative journalism, they are at the mercy of the media houses. Do you think the media is culpable in this regard?
Well, I think everybody has a share in the blame. The traditional media, especially in Nigeria, we see a lot of private stations now, and things are becoming more specialized. Back in the day, when it was just the national stations, it had this newsy feel to it, talk radio with a lot of news. So there were a lot of bulletins, so they had the need to get a lot of reporters, investigative journalism. Also, we have crime reporters, people who go the extra length to. So there were people who were really doing the business of journalism. But these days, as we see with so many private radio stations, we have music stations, more of contemporary hits radio stations. So their newsrooms are not that staffed, and even if they are, they usually just have maybe one or two experienced people. So there's not a lot of manpower to do the digging on the ground, and to get the data that you speak about. So it's a challenge, really. But then again, we have the online media to grapple with, because every now and then, anything you see online, you have to find a way to vet it first before you use it. And a lot of people get access to this information. Everything is at your fingertips. So the traditional media houses are really trying and really have a job to do to make sure that they are also at the fingertips with probably vetted or real news as opposed to the fake news. So that's where the problems are. So, and also we're also not seeing the bodies like the NBC, which is the regulatory body for traditional media here, doing more in terms of maybe grants or stuff like that, to help the media. Because it's a different thing when the media airs and they clamp down and their fines are paid. And what other support are they giving to make sure that they're able to do the jobs and not break regulations. So that's there's a lot of support that is needed because it's a business and people are trying to make sure that the business is profitable. So there's only so much you can do as to in staffing and getting a lot of people to do a lot of the work. And at the end of the day, things people want to sponsor, especially the big brands, they rarely sponsor news bulletins except on TV.
Some might actually disagree with you. Why would the NBC, Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, be the one to sponsor private radio station? I mean, the aim of commercial radio is to make money. Some may argue that that's why you came on board. You must have done your feasibility studies, done proper research, and developed a business plan to show that you can have the cash flow to sustain a big venture such as running a radio station. So in saying that the NBC should come in to support, some might feel that's it's going to be a case of a clash of interest in a certain way, and probably extra control and censorship on the part of media when the aim is supposed to be free press.
Now, talking about regulation, you know that if you violate a regulation, you get fined, right? So you can actually do your journalism and be sure that you don't go afoul of the rules, right? But that's a different step. Now, to getting into deepening the research and the statistics, that is something that even the government should have those data about stuff like that, in terms of voter registration, access to data, how educated the electorate are, what people saying, all those other stuff. Now, be that as it may, a lot of even the government stations are also going through the same things. So, which brings me to the fact that, as it is, it's a problem. Hate speech, there's a time where we also saw the government trying to clamp down on hate speech and the rest of all of that. So we do have an obligation to make sure that we're trying to control these things, but support is always going to get us there faster. So it doesn't have to be for the privately owned stations, because what would happen is that they will just focus on their competencies. So if you're a music station, a lot of people are not going to be bothered about going to do anything too newsy. You just have the soft news and the fluff. That's what's going to happen. So, and it would definitely not encourage the newsy stations. So if support is needed, there could be a roundtable, and they could see how they could provide. It could be even be in trainings. Actually, it could actually be in some government-sponsored things, or even if not the government, the agencies that are involved, even the Broadcast Organization of Nigeria, which encourages everyone is a part of. So that's what I'm saying, because they do have conferences and things like that where they do educate people in the media ecosystem on what they can do and how they can improve. So maybe more needs to be done in that regard.
Now, talk about collaboration. The Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, the Nigerian Communications Commission, right? We have the National Orientation Agency, we have INEC, all in charge of making sure elections are done as at when, and they're equipped with the manpower. They also have the right tools to ensure there is transparency, fairness in the game of electioneering and all of that. The question is, how much do you and how much does the media generally in Nigeria work as collaborators? If funding cannot come directly, how do they work as collaborators to see that, one, they managed information, there is a central data collecting point? For example, like the census of Nigeria, what's the population like? Even the Nigerian Bureau of Public Enterprise, these are different arms where information gathering is key. And the FOI Act, the Freedom of Information Act, has given us a powerful tool to have access to information. With all of this available, why do you still consider having the need for more funding for the private station when you can have all of this access, except it's clear that there's no collaboration between these various entities who are key in information dissemination?
Okay, talking about collaboration, it's not a private or a public thing. It's more about the goal here, to make sure that everyone has access to this information, as you so put. And coming to all of these agencies, we need to also feel what the NOA is doing, what the civil organizations are doing, what INEC is doing as well, because a lot of people, even the information as regarding the amount of people who have picked up their PVC and all those things, they are available. But funny enough, I get to see them on the pages of the national, what's it called, budget, and Enough is Enough. They have on an Instagram page where they do put out some of this data and stuff like that. So I think in a timely fashion, in order the best way to stop fake news or assumptions from happening is when the people who gather this data publish them. So if they are readily available for everyone, not just the broadcast media, but for the non-sensitive information, and it's available for the public, then it will make it easier for people not to be able to discern what is true and what is not, and it will also make this. That's the collaboration that we're talking about. So I also think that all of these agencies and the media, the people who report the news, who are specific to that, they need to do more together. So I don't think a lot is being done as it is, and that's why there are these gaps. But if they can, or if we can, and everybody knows, okay, especially this period, because a lot of sensitive information is going to be going out now, and this is when we see the hate speech in the midst of it. So the traditional media still needs to buckle up and make sure that they sensitize the people and they are not caught sleeping.
I think that's the most powerful point. The media should not be caught sleeping on duty. As much as we crave and cry and insist on press freedom, it also behoves that we do our part as responsible press people.
The Lady E Show, a mixed grill cocktail of fun entertainment.